Hi, my name is Andrew Sargeant. I'm one half of the design team for the Peace Park redesign along with Jim McKnight. And in this presentation, in this video, we'll be talking to you about our community engagement results, but then also two design concepts that we'd love to get your feedback and opinion on before consolidating into one final design concept. So the first station at the design jam that we had was predict your park, and this allowed us to see, a generalization of the rank in terms of priorities within the park. And so we had six predefined categories, including the event stage, the playground, and natural spaces, and some other ones. But we also allowed people to fill in some of the blank spaces if they felt something that they wanted to see within the park that wasn't in those predefined slots. So in terms of the results, the playground was the number one area in terms of prioritization within the park. Number two being natural spaces. Number three being the event stage. Number four being reading areas. And number five being garden spaces. Some other things that weren't in the predefined categories but did come up quite a bit were the open field area, a splash pad, walking loops, and shaded seating areas. The second station at the Design Jam was called Mark the Map, and we had two different scales in this station, one at the neighborhood scale and then one at the site-specific scale, drilling down into more nuanced parts of the site. So at the neighborhood scale, one of the big things we wanted to glean was how people getting to the site. So the majority of folks either walked to the site or drove to the site. There was a concentration of residents in the south and east of the park. We did not get a lot of participation in that day from residents that live north of Mayfield, but with the help of the library, we're consulting with those folks now and trying to get them involved within the process. The favorite shops were concentrated on the commercial district on Coventry, and the Peace Park ranked number one in terms of people's favorite park within the neighborhood. Now getting into the site-specific areas, so looking at favorite play spots, so we heard that a certain group of amenities or certain play spots were among favorites. So number one being the big slide was one of the most popular play areas. The lower part of the park was also very popular, specifically for the zip line and the tire rope swings. Other areas included the towers and the boat, and outside of the playground, favorite play spots included the field, a green space, or the sledding hill. And we also heard that some areas in the back of the art center were used as impromptu dark bar. In regards to places to meet friends, the green space, again, the open field area, was definitely the most popular. And the northern part of the playground seemed to be the second most popular, and where, especially the area with the covered swings. Other meeting areas are scattered around the lower part of the playground, but then also entrances to the library and the art center. And this was very interesting, along with some of the feedback we got in the Predictor Park, was the shaded grassy areas were generally where people wanted to sit. You'll see that shaded seating comes up quite a bit in all the community engagement feedback that we gleaned from Design Jam. So with that being said, shaded grassy areas, people tend to sit in the higher areas on the top of the sledding hill where there's some benches, but then also, some shade trees there. The area behind the art center also had a bench that some people mentioned. In regards to entrances what people use, we understood that the entry on Euclid, not necessarily a primary entrance, but folks did use it, and we learned from staff in the building that a lot of children come through that entrance, but the most popular entrance was on the corner of Coventry and Euclid, but then also the parking lot entrance as well. Another station that we had was Share Your Story, and this allowed us to kind of get a little bit more intimate in regards to some of the program and events that happened within the park, again, preserving the flexibility for those events to continue into the future. So things that we heard about were pie fights after the Stooges movies, the Black Lives Matter mural being really important, of course, the sledding hill, book clubs, general stories about, the construction of the park or summer movie nights. So a lot of this program and a lot of this, more qualitative data of what people like to do within the park definitely went into, furthering these design concepts. And then the most extensive part of our community engagement stations was this one called Find Your Favorite, which was a precedent survey which allowed folks to pick their favorite from 16 categories, 8 specific to the playground and 8 specific to park environment. And then not only did they pick their favorite, they had to tell us why. From the 4 choices, this was their favorite. So starting with number 1, which was layout. This image that you see was responded really very well to because people really like the idea of some inclusion in other sports. So basketball hoop, folks felt that this was a place for all types of people. It was quite expansive. There was a lot of connectivity between play structures, and it was colorful and looked like a lot of fun. And the image right on top of it was a close second because folks thought that it looked organic and natural. It was open and colorful and preserved green space. Moving on to Hillside Play, folks really liked this because they thought it would facilitate adventure activities. It was grassy, it blends with the nature. It was wooden, whimsical. They liked the rope bridge, inspires fun, and looks like it would be fun in the summer and winter as well. Moving along to slides, we had almost a tie here, but the one that was preferred the most was this large curvy slide, and for reasons because again it felt natural. It had a shade accompanying to it, and one of the things that folks mentioned a lot that they like the current Peace Park slides because they're wide enough to accommodate multiple kids. So you'll see in the design options, that's one thing that we took into consideration. And in the close second, a lot of people like the fact that these slides had climbing opportunities. You can see the rocks adjacent to the slides. There was multiple slides as well. In regards to swings, there's generally a tie between all 4 images, which let us know that people like swings of different size and nature, but some of the things that folks let us know, they like the idea of classical swings, they like the idea of swings where multiple kids could be on, they like the idea of the swings being surrounded by trees and unique or natural materials. In regards to equipment, or large equipment, folks like the idea, again, of things that had a natural look to them, things that allowed you to use your imagination, the things that preserved an open viewing, discourage hiding, and the fact that wood equipment would stay cooler than other metal or plastic equipment. One of the things that we saw when we were on site previous to the design jam that younger children were using a lot of scooters or bikes. So one of the things we wanted to do was facilitate some of that within the redesign of the playground. So the opportunity for a cycle track that could go around the playground. And then folks, again, really liked this idea. They liked that it was curvy, that it looped around the playground. The surface material looked like a street, so had that kind of fun, imaginative quality to it. And that the delineation in surfaces, you know, the cycle track separate from the play equipment was really strong and allowed people to sit with inside. In regards to regular playground surfacing, a lot of folks really responded well to the natural playground surfacing, the mulch, as it would be, you know, one, recyclable, renewable, biodegradable, definitely get less hot than other surfaces, easy to maintain and replenish. But folks did mention in a number of feedbacks in regards to the survey that they did like the incorporation of some rubber areas because it was bouncy, it looked like it would be safer for children and soft and not as messy as the mulch material. We now move on to theme play. One of the things that we'd like to do is start to incorporate some history and some natural character to the site that is unique to not only the Cleveland Heights area, but then also to Ohio. So the number one result of this portion of the survey was this bird themed play area, and folks liked it because it was abstract, artistic, It seemed nature oriented. It could be specific to a species in Ohio or an iconic animal, and it got multiple uses out of one play structure. A close second was the ship structure, and a lot of folks like the fact that it kept with the current ship theme that is currently within the park. It was wooden, many ways to play, and there was a rock wall on the boat, which some folks thought was inventive. In regards to climbing, this image scored among the highest simply because it felt like it was accessible to new climbers. It offered the net seemed like a great place to rest and hang out. You don't have to be climbing all the time, and seemed like it added an extra layer of adventure. There was also a close second here because the image on the top felt like it was built into the landscape. It had wood elements that felt a little bit safer and offered two different ways to climb right next to one another. In regards to nature play, again, some of the things that we were hearing from other portions of the design survey was the fact that, this had, it was one with natural surroundings, felt like it blended it into the landscape. It offered trees and shade. It looked like you can climb and get inside, a lot of natural materials, and looked interactive, magical, and whimsical. A close second, however, was this image, again, at the top that featured a stage for kids to perform. Again, multiple trees and shade and wooden, and looked like it featured many ways to play. Moving along to the park environment, the first category in that sector of the engagement was event seating. So this was the number one image, and folks were really responsive to the fact that the rock seat wall. They liked the fact that it incorporated green space, shade, blended in with the environment, feels like the country. But one thing that we heard in multiple people's responses was the fact that they'd like it, but as long as it doesn't do away with the sledding hill, and you'll see how that came to fruition within one of the design concepts. The next thing we had a tie in regards to paths throughout the site. The number one thing folks were caring about was wheelchair friendliness, so accessibility was key. That all paths were safe, tree lined with a lot of shade, integrated with the planting, looked rustic and natural. And then someone wrote that it should feel like hiking within an urban area. So one of the things we tried to do was incorporate, what would be primary paths, but then also maybe some secondary, more rustic, naturalistic paths as well. In regards to gazebos, a lot of folks responded that this could be an element within the site, but not necessarily a focus or too large, and it could not be necessary. So you'll see that we split that up in regards to the design concepts. The folks liked this image because it provided a view of the surroundings. It was kind of grand and had a high ceiling, and could house picnic tables or space for the performance stage underneath. In regards to planting, visibility must remain high. Folks really brought up the need for native vegetation, of course, again, trees and shade. In regards to trees specifically, folks wanted to see the incorporation of flowering trees, so some understory trees as well. And the idea of a wilder look was fine, but must be easy to care for, definitely with less maintenance. Seating in this portion, we understood that folks wanted a variety of seating. So although this image was picked as the favorite, folks commented that they wanted a place for benches, if suitable, a place for movable tables and chairs, and just like this image, a place where seating is kind of built within the landscape. And then overall, it must be in the shade, and we heard that it must have a seat back. As folks were, prioritizing, that feeling of accessibility, especially for a more elderly population with that support. And then we had signage. So folks really liked this image a lot because it was wooden and natural, colorful and artistic. And one thing they keyed in on, and we hope to key in on in the final version of the design, is that it was informative not only about nature, but then also the history of the site and then Cleveland Heights as well. So generally our final takeaways, number one being that additional tree canopy and shade should go throughout the redesign of the park. The aesthetic of the park should be rustic and natural. Celebrated program and uses should be preserved and incorporated within the new design. Visibility and safety should not be compromised in terms of any additional features within the park, and accessibility and inclusion should be infused within the amenities and spaces. So I'll go into the first option, and before going into this option, I just want to preface and say that these options are trying to be a balance of all the feedback that we heard, and understanding that moving forward, the final design will be an amalgamation or a combination of the favorites that resonate with folks from both options. So some key takeaways in regards to this option was the amended entrance in the library area. So advising some change to the ADA accessibility. So a ramp going up here that leads to a community deck. So the ADA accessibility is not just limited to this lower door. We have now rerouted the entrance a little bit to now better orient to the library, but then also to the playground. Preserve this circle area and remove the circulation throughout it, which we think will function much better as a space, and move the arch at the entrance to this area as well. So this will serve as a reading garden for the library. Adjacent to that, we have this pollinator garden and where we have our terrace walls that face an event stage. So in this concept, we have the terrace walls in terms of our event seating and a non-covered stage below. We've also did some reconfiguring within the parking lot to accommodate for some more ADA spaces, but then also spaces specifically for the library to make that walk a little bit shorter, especially for those with accessibility issues. And then moving over to the right side of the plan is the newly designed playground. One of the things that we've done, again, in order to kind of facilitate, the portion of the site that is adjacent to Euclid, in this design, one of the things that we've done is remove the sidewalk and then bring that sidewalk directly into the site. So instead of having the fence there, this whole area now that faces Euclid is much more integrated into the site. Moving to the playground, we have in this concept the shipwreck climber, which is that boating feature that you saw in the theme play, accompanied with a slide, some climbing, swings, and the zip line. We have our cycle track to the right of that with a lawn and then a kid stage and then a half basketball court, which responded again to that layout picture that you saw. In the northern portion of the site, we have, or the upland portion of the site, we have our wide slide, which has some rocks adjacent to it, a climbing net, another rock wall, and some of those natural climbing structures that you saw in the natural play slide previously. We also have a glider swing, which is again for children or anyone with accessibility issues. Adjacent, we preserve this area for the sledding hill and provided a water fountain. Right next to the library, where we have a large community patio that again, fixes some of the accessibility issues there, but then also facilitates what we hope to do, which is exposing the culverted stream into a natural amenity that folks could see this water running and then have a bridge entry to that community patio. Again, with the reconfigured parking lot, the ADA spaces would be just slid down just a little bit, and we have entry kiosks both here and here with signage about the amenities within the park, but then also wayfinding as well. And this just breaks down some of the specific imagery, again, gathered from the precedent survey to find your favorite portion of the community engagement process and where they're situated on site. So again, you can see, we have natural play elements up here. We have our wide slide with some rocks adjacent, and then climbing and some more rock climbing opportunities right over here, and again that unculverted or exposed stream bed that is now within a pipe that we would like to expose as a natural amenity. In the lower portion of the site, we have again our climbing structure, which is built into the shipwreck, that facilitates a slide as well. We have the event stage that's surrounded by the cycle track, and then our half basketball court, which is adjacent. And this is just a perspective of what that lower area of the playground could look like. Again, we see our shipwreck play right here with the swing adjacent, our cycle track in the background with the lawn space, our swings, our wide slide, and climbing that leads up to natural play up at the top. In regards to the left side of the site and the site that's more adjacent to the library, again, we see some of those amenities mentioned previously. We see that our event seating is kind of nestled into the hill right here that again faces the event stage. We have signage clearly indicated within the path. Our reading garden over here that is preserved in the circle area that now exists, and then a pollinator garden with some benches and seating inside. And then a perspective showing what that may look like. So we see, our sidewalk now comes directly into the park, as I previously mentioned, leads directly down to the event stage. Looking back at our event seating, our reading garden just beyond that, and then the community deck with the new ADA access to the library, along with our new ADA parking spaces adjacent as well. In option two, some of the things that we'd like to do in specific areas was to reimagine what this reading garden can be. So in this area, we have one large area about the same size as the current circular space, but then we have a secondary and tertiary area along with that. So the reading garden now becomes a series of rooms as opposed to one isolated space. We've removed the amphitheater seating or the seat walls within the hillside, and have now just continued the benches and canopy tree planting that now exists, but is kind of sparse. And we've had our event gazebo space down here. So this event space has a gazebo top that allows it to be a shelter in certain events, but then also facilitate, picnic tables and things like that under it. In this portion, we've kind of slimmed down the parking or added some parking in regards to ADA spaces adjacent to the library, and really preserved the rest of the parking spaces that now exist. In regards to the playground layout, we have our half basketball court again. And in this design, one of the things we tried to do was facilitate a level of access that didn't demand stairs down into the lower part of the playground. So kids can now walk directly here via a bridge and then come down into kind of this sloped play area. So what now exists as a retaining wall is now blend into the entire landscape of the playground. This all just feels like one large play area. And what that allows us to have slides, a climbing hill, zip line built into that, and with a bird play structure at the base. Moving up to the, again, upland portion of the site, we have, a large wooden climbing play structure, our big curvy hill from one of the precedents, multiple swings, a water fountain, and some natural climbing structures. Again, we preserved an area for the sledding hill down into the open field space. And in this one, we still have a community patio, although it's much larger than the previous concept. And then our entry kiosk that, will have signage both at this entrance, but then also at this entrance. We do still have an entrance on the Euclid side. It's now at this point, instead of coming into this playground again, to kind of preserve this playground being one large area. And again, keying in on, again, some of the precedent images and where they're located within this concept, we see that we have our swings located up on the northern part of the site. We then have our natural climbing play elements, our curvy slide, and then our large wooden structures built into the hillside as well. In the lower portion of the playground, we have Again, our half basketball court situated over here, our large bird play structure, swings and things built into the new hilled landscape, again with allowing kids to run directly from this northern portion of the playground instead of going down steps, and creating this kind of loop play experience, but then also some climbing built into that as well. One thing that I forgot to mention is that in this concept, we allotted some area for picnic tables, or just generally a seating area for children to look, or not for children, for parents to look onto children playing in the adjoining play spaces. That's featured right here. And again, you can see the large bird play structure, the slides and climbing built into that hill landscape, and then the bridge that would allow kids to run directly from the northern portion of the upland portion of the playground directly into the lower portion of the playground. A big curvy slide as well. And again, on the left-hand side of the park, more adjacent to the library, we have our reading room that is now again a series of 3 different rooms. Which would come with built-in seating, some movable tables and chairs, and a lot of updated planting. We have a large sign that welcomes folks within the park, and you can start to see some of these benches that now are going to ring the northern edges of the park. And then a perspective again of what that space would look like within this concept. So again, our gazebo event stage area down to the bottom. Again, those benches on the upper part of the portion of the park with additional shade opportunities, our smaller ADA parking over here, and our large reading garden adjacent to the entrance of the park.